Sonic Talk.
Hello everybody and welcome to Sonic Talk episode 522, recording today live on Wednesday the 7th of February 2018. It's been a couple of weeks since our last meeting. It feels like it's sort of AA or maybe it's an SS meeting, which is because we've been at NAMM, and NAMM, if you don't know, was the kind of huge music instrument and industry conference fair in Anaheim, California. We just got back from there, and as you probably tell from my voice, it's not because I've been talking lots, it's just because I got ill before when we got back and hit by the jet lag and all of those things that tend to happen after a trip such as that. But this is the podcast to do with music technology and music equipment and software and controllers, synthesizers, drum machines, all of those sort of things. If this is your first time, stay tuned. Show lasts about an hour. We've got a competition from iZotope where you can win a copy of iZotope's Ozone 8 mastering suite. And just stay tuned and enjoy yourselves. I want to say hello to our chatties. We've got plenty of people in the chat room at YouTube. That's if you head over to sonicstate.com/live, you'll be able to find all the coordinates to that. And also our stalwarts in the IRC chat room that we run ourselves as well. Always nice to see everybody there. How many people have we got today? We got a bunch, I hope. In fact, our last broadcast, we did a live show from the NAMM floor, which was on the Sunday, which was a little bit, it was a bit seat of the pants because we ended up... we were supposed to be at the streaming hub, or at least this is what I thought was happening. They have a streaming hub at NAMM, and I went over there on Sunday morning. Kind of, we had it booked for a few hours, and we were going to do a proper round table thing. Actually, it was a relief because when I got there, it's like a PA and an audience, and it was all a bit kind of pro. And when I got there on Sunday morning, they packed it all up, and they weren't streaming on a Sunday. They just let us. They'd left the network cable, so we could have used it to upload videos. It was a sort of backstop. So in the end, we ended up going to the press room and doing it on iPhones and iPads, where we had Mr. Gaz Williams with us, because Gaz was a NAMM virgin, which is hard to believe, really, considering he's so involved in music technology. Gaz and actually not been to the States before either, so it was a double whammy for you, right?
I did not hit her. I did not. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Nick. That was just a little in joke there.
Right, okay. Went over my head.
That was partly because of my experiences in America there. When I first arrived in LA, we watched the Disaster Artist, followed by The Room. So that was just a little room thing. Yeah. I mean, wow. So much. I mean, I was there for a week or so before NAMM began, so that was really cool. I had lots of fun. But yeah, NAMM. It was. I mean, it really, truly is super huge. I mean, it's
massive.
It's so big. Yeah. I mean, in that biggest room, you can stand in the middle and look in two directions, and you can't really see the end of the walls either way you look. It's just so vast. I mean, and there's all these incredible displays as well. I mean, you might have seen Roland's display. They had a big climbing wall made out of little drum pads. Wasn't really a climbing wall. There was a sign said, "Please don't climb on it."
I didn't see that, actually. I must have missed that one.
Yeah.
Did you climb on it, Gaz?
I wanted to. We were, yeah.
Security were reaching for their inside pockets, right?
But I mean, it was so good. And I mean, I experienced so much generosity as well. And a big shout out to Jeff Clark as well. He was incredibly kind, giving me a lift on the first day of NAMM, all the way home to North Hollywood, when he lived in San Diego, which is in the exact opposite direction. Yeah, really kind. And just, it was so nice to actually physically meet people who I've maybe been, getting to know online for a number of years. Pete Brown, for instance. There's loads of people. You might have seen the video of me meeting Cuckoo. That was fun. That was like a long time.
Yeah, that seemed to cause a bit of a stir.
Yeah, that was brilliant. And I think that, those sort of things, of course, I've seen people mentioning about the Vernon Reid Diego Stocco incident, which was just so funny. You couldn't have scripted that. That was just brilliant. Did you mention that earlier? Or...
I didn't, not yet, no.
Oh, okay. So there's a video up about that where I was just mooching about on the Sunday. This was after the show that we did on the Sunday, and Vernon Reed from Living Colour kind of came up to me and he was going, Gaz, really, really nice to meet you, big fan. And sort of like going, the wrong way round, dude. I'm the fan. But it turns out he's a huge fan of Sonicstate, and that was great. And we were talking about the what we'd seen and what was good at the show. And I had Ed with me at the time with a camera. So I asked Vernon, I said, well, should we do this on camera? And he was like, yeah, sure. So we started filming a little piece, which didn't have the same energy as our initial conversation. It was a little bit more sort of
often the way when the red light's going.
Yeah. And then Diego turned up. Vernon says, wow, that's a guitar. And turned around and this Diego Stocco carrying an absolutely gigantic guitar, and he sees me. He's going, "Guys, look! It's mine!
That was the one that was downstairs. I saw that earlier. Actually, I remember that. Yeah. No, it's a lovely moment. You're right, Gaz, and I thoroughly recommend you watch that. It's all there on YouTube. We got well over 100 videos there. But I should introduce also. We have another guest in case you hadn't noticed. We got Mr. Divkid, Ben Wilson. Divkid video on YouTube. Man of many modular talents. I noticed you posted you posted a load of stuff on the Model D as well, which I wanted to talk to you about because you must have got a whole. Is it D or Model D? I'm not sure what you're supposed to call it. It's like those instruments, don't they, that say inspired by the sound of electromechanical keyboards. You're not actually allowed to say what it is, but I guess in this case it's Model D, or is it D, whichever.
I think it's D, but I've put Model D on every video I've put online, and no one said anything. We all know what it is. But yeah, I'm good, slightly jealous about NAMM, exactly for what Gaz said. I'd love to go out and meet more of the people that I've worked with or getting to know online. That's as big a part of it, well, bigger than the gear for any kind of event, I think. It sets the year up in terms of work for meeting people. And yeah, I'm slightly jealous and envious, not so much for you two with the NAMM fracks, but
never mind.
I'd love to have got.
So,
the Model D. Sorry.
So, tell me more about the Model D, because I did watch a little bit of the video, and it definitely, so I guess the first question is, so how does it sound?
Good. In a word.
Excellent.
Someone said, are you going to do a comparison with a reissue and an original? I was like, well, no, I don't have both. I don't have either here. I have some experience with an original, about 10 or 15 minutes with a reissue. It evokes similar feelings. It's not maybe as luxury of an experience. Playing the Model D is a big instrument. It's not that at all, but it wouldn't be if Moog made kind of an official one in that format either, I don't think. It definitely gets you there. And for $300, pounds, euros, I think it's 300 of whatever currency. It's brilliant. I don't quite know how they're going to do. Well, they're doing it. People seem to be getting them now. Good, in a word. I'd like a few more patch points, and there's a couple of gripes with it that we can get into or skirt by, depending on if it wants to be a bit negative or not. They're only minor, but it's not quite perfect in terms of its integration, I think. Little things like the glide works for USB and MIDI. DIN MIDI on the socket, it doesn't work for proactive input. So depending how you're playing it, you either do or don't have the glide feature, which is a little bit of a shame.
Right.
And things like the gate input for the filter and the envelope and the gate input for the loudness section envelope aren't normalized. So you can't plug a single gate cable in and trigger both envelopes, which is what would happen over MIDI or over a keyboard on an original. So you're having to, use splitters or those like head. So it's a minor gripe, which maybe is just.
It's like essence of.
yeah. There's ways around it, and I guess you could argue, and someone did kind of point me out on this. I was talking online about the glide, that if you're using modular sequencers, well, certainly he was looking at an image like this of me and said, you don't have an issue making a sequence glide. I says, well, no, but that's not really what I was getting into. But I guess, yeah, if you're using modular stuff, you've probably got all the utilities to get around those minor little issues. The thing that makes it maybe less exciting is the Neutron, I think. Because that's got so many
that does look a lot more kind of comprehensive, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't sound the same at all.
No.
So sonically, it depends on which kind of area you want to go down. But it's got so many features in it. You know, everything in that potentially is very modular. You could completely isolate the oscillators to work with something else. You could plug something else into the filter, so on and so on.
That's this guy,
the Model D,
the red one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because initially I was thinking it was going to be 32 patch points, but it's a lot more than that, isn't it?
And hold on, I think I've got the scan of the patch points.
56 patch points?
There they all are, in their glory. There we go. I won't play all of those. Well, I mean, it's only a minute long anyway, isn't it, I suppose? Yeah, that. I mean, in some ways, what's really... we only had the option either to turn up straight off the plane, which was a little bit of a big ask, certainly after sort of 15 hours travel, or go back on the Wednesday, which would have been like 6 or 8 hours of away from NAMM, which was just completely impractical for us. So we didn't get a chance to do it. I know a few people who did, and they said it was good fun. And also, Behringer weren't there, and Dave Smith Instruments weren't there. Well, Dave was around, but they weren't exhibiting there. They did have a by all accounts some kind of private room with some stuff in it. But they still managed to Behringer still managed to get quite a lot of headlines just by releasing some information about a product. So it's probably a lot cheaper in many ways, because goodness knows what size. I mean, imagine the size of the booth that they usually have must cost, I don't know, $1 million or something. I'm guessing. I'm just totally guessing. So that was an interesting point from that point of view. So yeah, definitely. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out and what's going to happen about trade shows generally. Gaz, did you feel that it was in any way kind of, I mean, you didn't have anything to compare it to, I suppose, because you've not been before, and it was a larger physically. They combined it with sort of AES aspects and also Plaza sort of live sound reinforcement stuff. So it was much bigger, generally speaking, but how did the energy just generally feel about it? I mean, I guess it was pretty vibey anyway for you, but
yeah, I mean, you know, just as I was mentioning earlier, it's so vast. So I mean, getting from certain areas to other areas was quite a trek at times. But yeah, there's definitely a really good buzz going on, and it's just fantastic to see, you know, super cool musicians walking around. I mentioned on the last show that we did, you know, I managed to shake hands and say hello to Marcus Miller, which was a bit of a thrill. And I've seen on sort of the coverage, or, you know, lots of people who were there. Yeah, so that was great. And also, I mean, we got to hang out with a bunch of cool musicians, and Ida Nielsen, who's Prince's bass player from 2010 until he sadly passed. We went out for a meal with her and went to watch her play with Soren Anderson, and that was really cool. So opportunities to see these great musicians play, and, you know, and get to hang out with them too is really, really great. Also, just things like just little spontaneous meetings. I was just having a coffee, just minding my own business, and Roger Lynn came up to me and was very kind, said some lovely words about my Linstrument review. I think there was just an absolute cavalcade, is that a correct word?
Yeah, that sounds
of things happening the entirety I was there, which is astonishing. Another funny thing was I was on a train, on the Amtrak train coming down from Burbank, and I went down into the restaurant cart, and someone was looking at me going, "Gaz?" It was John Van Eaton, who's a regular,
yeah,
and just happened to be on the train same time, saw me. So there was lots of things like that happening the whole time, which which was great fun, but it was just like a kind of constant thing.
It's quite mind-blowing, isn't it, when you're kind of...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and in terms of like the layout, once you start to kind of work out where things are, where the kind of the modular area is, where the guitar pedal sections are, and when you think you know where the synthesizer stuff is, then you realize like Roland's bit or whatever is in a completely different part of town, if you could call it that, sort of, to get there. So I mean, you've said this before about just the sheer amount of energy. It's a bit like being at Glastonbury Festival, getting from place to place and big crowds of people. Yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, there's just so many things. I think I was on the Friday night. There was an enormous drum jam going outside the main entrance.
Yes. The drum circle.
Yeah, it must have been 1,000 people there playing drums, which for some people would probably be the biggest nightmare.
Yeah, me. After a day at the show, it's just sort of like, oh no, I got to get out of here. I mean, I'm not grumpy, but it's just like after 8 hours of most of that, you just think, silence, please. Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, I think, as I mentioned on the last show, the Stephen Slate incident as well, where I was watching him doing a presentation of, which I do think is really impressive stuff he's got there, but being totally interrupted by the NAMM parade band, marching band, which he did sort of raise an important point there, in that who actually wants the NAMM parade band out of all the exhibitors, because that was so loud. That was super loud. And there he was trying to demonstrate stuff. That's actually all up on YouTube now if you want to check it out. But I mean, I did feel a bit sorry for him actually, because I think what he's got there, because of course that's all coming to fruition now. That complete system, the Stephen Slate system, with the audio interface as well, which has got the kind of the preamps which work in conjunction with the software. So it's a little bit like what Universal Audio. Someone suggested that the NAMM parade band was sponsored by Universal Audio, which I thought was quite funny.
Well, it is a slightly different thing, I suppose. But yeah, no, I tell you what, I mean, the amount of energy and the level is... I suppose in terms of releases, I mean, Ben, because I noticed you posted a couple of... Have you had access to the Digitone then? Or Digitone? What's it called? How do you pronounce it up north?
Yeah, I'm going to say you
Digitone.
Can have the Bradford.
What's the Bradford? Digitone or Digit? Is it Dig or Dig?
Digi as in digital, I think.
Okay.
Then I was watching Bo B explain why he says Digitakt in Swedish.
Diggy.
He's done a whole, Diggy.
I'm gonna cut in here. I'm gonna cut in here. We're having our arses kicked all the time for saying Moog instead of Moog. So I think we've got to say Digitakt and Digitone, because that's what Elektron call it. So there.
Okay, fair enough. But so you've had access to it. I mean, because that was a bit of a surprise to me. I know Cenk was very excited by it, and as you saw, we gave Cenk the presenter of the year, and they won the product of the show. The best of show for that, and because it was a nice release, and it sounded really good. I mean that whole range. Well, there's certainly the Digitakt sounds really good, and the Digitone. Let's sticking with the form sounds good. You've had a time to play with it. What do you think of it?
Yeah, so it was very, well, as these things often are, it was very late arrival really for me. It came, well, conversations started around the 21st of December, roughly, saying we're going to get one to you Christmas week. I was introduced through a friend, Scanner, a great performer, composer, and great many things. He put me in touch with them, and it was for doing factory content. So it was kind of for the synthesis side, which was good because I'm not that familiar with Elektron devices. So it felt like the flames were licking my bottom. I had about a week or two to get, they just said as many patches as possible. Staff are making them, a few extra people are making them. And yeah, it's a very powerful engine. Some people seem to complain that it's only 4 operators. And that you can pick up old Yamaha rack FM devices that have more, but you lose the power of the Elektron device, I like that it's got a kind of subtractive voice or subtractive back end tagged on.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you've done all the operator bit, you've then got the filter, which sounds great, multi-mode filter, 2-pole and 4-pole low pass, which is nice, VCA with saturation, and then delay, reverb, chorus that sounds very good. I stay away from the effects for the sound design because most things you can get away with drowning in long, lush reverb. But yeah, really impressive. And with the sequencer, 8 potential voices. The only thing I had to remember was how many voices in unison I was using per part, because it's 4 parts and 8 voices, and how you assign control per project or per patch. So that was a little bit confusing. But yeah, having all the parameter locks over all the operators, envelope times, the LFOs were much more powerful than I thought as well. You can put them in triggered mode. They did lots of tempo division, lots of lock tempo stuff. You can get some really nice drums, which maybe isn't what everyone wants. I think drums and pads is kind of my thing with FM, and an occasional 90s house bass sound. But yeah, really impressive. I like that. The most impressive thing for me was that the 4 operators had an X and a Y output that were kind of tapped from different points in the operator pairings that you could move around and change different algorithms of. So you could have a very high bell-like lead sound on one and then a deeper bass on the other. And you could modulate and crossfade between. You could make one part feel like several very easily before you even started animating it. So straight away, my head was in, I should probably get a Digitakt. It did sell the Elektron thing to me as a kind of
interesting. Yeah, because I mean, that's the thing that that Cenk is very good at demonstrating. He uses the P-locks just incredibly powerfully. So, you know, you start off with one thing and you end up with, you know, essentially a completely different sound on each step of the sequence, you know, because it's just, it's so, and the way that they do P-locks is really smart. It's much better because other companies do attempt that. I mean, like most notably on the boutique SEO2, you know, they would you do P-locks on up to 5 parameters. But the problem is, it's not a snapshot of the P-lock; it's relative. So if you go delay time up on step 5, then it's up from step 5 through round again to step 5. It's not where it was before. You have to sort of I'm not sure I'm explaining it very well. So it's a state-based system, whereas on the Elektron stuff, it's like whatever it is at the moment is where it is, and then you change it, and it's just changed for that step. It's not then open forever, you know. So and that's much smarter and much more musical, and that's where they really nailed it, I think, and that's very clever the way that they've done.
You can do very cool things with what they call trigless locks as well, where you put parameter changes in without having it to be tied to a note. So like, for instance, you can push play on the sequence and then you can play stuff, and the sound completely changes as you play, which is super cool.
Right, okay. So it's not
so the parameters change.
Note on. Yeah.
It doesn't need to have the note. Yeah. So trigless locks, they call them. Yeah. And you know, stuff like that's really super creative.
It's interesting. Sorry, go.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say I found that really useful in that not having been heavily into the Elektron boxes before, just through lack of having them, not that I'm not into the boxes, as it were. I'd get a very simple sequence going because my focus had to be the sounds and the patches. And then I could do that with the parameter locks, but then step back and play it from a MIDI keyboard or send in a quick clip from Logic or Ableton over MIDI. So it meant that you could do that very quickly and creatively, however comfy you were with the device, which was great for me because I'm nowhere near friends, and certainly Cenk, in terms of flying through some amazing sequences.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, Cenk is one of those people that makes you aspire to want to be like him because he's so bloody talented and fluent on those things, as he should be. I mean, can
we get our picture up of when I cuddled him when we presented him with the award, didn't we? We presented him with the Best Presenter Award, and he was really... I
think I've got it.
He was he was really touched. He was so... Because I guess the equipment always gets the accolades. So for him to actually get an accolade made him very, made him really well,
See if I can
emotional,
find
really.
it.
So
I'm trying to find it. I'm going through all of my. I've got all these photos. These are all the photos of that we took for giving our awards. Bless him, York Shaft there with the.
He's fantastic.
He's fantastic.
So good.
Yeah,
yeah.
He always looks a
Brilliant
little bit
demonstrator
startled
he is.
in photographs. I'm just trying to find. There's a Herr Doepfer who's got the top chap.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find. He was very playful. I should probably have worn more neutral T-shirt that particular for that particular photo shoot. So let me see if I can find the Cenk shots. God, there's loads of it. This is Ed. Ed, I bless him, did a great job because he was absolutely hanging on Sunday. He went out and because as we know, that's the Smash Mouse that won the best controller, which also looked pretty cool. Let me see if I can find the Cenk photograph. There is a photo.
You find the photo, Nick. I want to give a little shout out to Jeremy at Red Means Recording. He got a Digitone and had a couple of days to do something. I think they asked him to do something very quickly and came up with this great idea that Cenk was after him and his family if he didn't make a video in a couple of days. So there's lots of pictures of Cenk taking all over, lots of nice sort of footage leading in and out of the video. That's
Excellent.
a great one.
Let me see if I can find it. There's so many. And these are all raw.
Oh, don't worry. I could grab it and send it to you. Actually,
I've got it. I just can't find it quick because they're all. Here we go. They're coming. I think they'll be coming up shortly. Hold on. Let me see.
It's the way. Jim.
There we go. That one.
Well, it's that one, and then there's the one that got modified as well.
I haven't seen that one.
You haven't seen that one? Oh, I'll find it. I'll send it over. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Any other highlights for you, Ben? I mean, I know Modular's a big thing. I mean, it's very hard to keep track because there's so much stuff. But I imagine a lot of the stuff you're already aware of. I mean, any other standout moments from the show that you kind of, from afar that you thought, oh, that looks kind of pretty cool. I'd like to check that out more. Or
there's a couple. Yeah, there's a lot of, I guess, more under the radar Modular stuff. I guess should start with the Strymon first, the Magneto. I haven't seen much content with it yet. So what was that like? I wanted to ask you both about that if you'd had a chance to check it out.
I think Ed filmed that one. I'm just seeing if I can find. I know we've got. Let me see here somewhere. It's
because the Magneto mode on the Big Sky is fantastic. Being able to kind of shift tape read heads, kind of 3, 4, or 5 tape read heads around, diffuse them to then create the reverb from this kind of tape delay. And of course, Strymon's modelled crinkle and noise and everything else that comes in is fantastic.
I'm just seeing if I can
It
find
seems to
it.
be we're in this kind of. Modular seems to move through years of. So there was kind of a year of performance mixers, more fully fleshed out mixers in Modular. Right. We've then had this kind of year of sample manipulation that I guess the Magneto falls into, in terms of timing-based looping and repitching as well.
Oh wow! I've just got too many files to try. Strymon. Let's see. This looks like a Strymon. So this is probably it. Thank you to our sponsors.
Announced 2 years ago, right?
Right.
2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah, we big expansion from what we had shown a couple of years ago.
So.
Hard to tell from that, Ben, to be perfectly honest, but isn't that very similar? Isn't that similar to like it's like kind of the IntelliGel Rainmaker's got a very similar sort of vibe with the kind of that level of control over multi-taps, or is it something very different?
Yeah, similar. I think Yoad last time he was on, or a couple of episodes ago, hit the nail on the head for the Rainmaker, that it's like Logic's delay designer, in that every tap can have a different filter cutoff, a feedback loop. It's not just one global feedback. But yeah, I guess similar, I guess. I don't know if you can actually sample into this as well, and it becomes more like a repitching looper as well. Okay. I like that they've got all the different clock in and outs. So you could put one sequence in and then, get the half-time clock, the quarter-time clock, if you've got lots of different rhythmic content. Seems like it would integrate very well.
Interesting. And I mean, speaking of loopers, there was the Electro-Harmonix, wasn't there, which was also really good. I think, did you shoot something with that, Gaz? I'm just trying to find it now.
Yeah, but we did shoot an interview with Mike Matthews, and we shot like an interview about the looper, but we ended up not using the interview with the looper because I was asking a bunch of questions that they couldn't answer, so we left those bits out. But what I was going to say, that looper looks great though. The Electro-Harmonix one, just in terms of it could operate. You could use it as a desktop looper or on the floor. It's got foot switches in there. Previous Electro-Harmonix ones has necessitated using an external foot controller with them. So all being in one is good. I think there's been a few people not so happy that it's only 16-bit. Which is a bit of a shame in a way, because I love using a looper as a sort of centerpiece in my workflow. So to be able to have a 24-bit recording facility would seem sensible, but no, unfortunately not. But it's okay, because I mean, I think it's still going to sound good, and it's got the facility to be able to make a little sub mix as well. You can make a mix down, and then you've got a mix down track. So
so you can
when
bounce
you fill up
and then
the 6 tracks, you got like 6 tracks and a mix down track as well, so you can do like a bounce down. So that's pretty cool, and it's just it's really cool. I was very impressed with it.
Sorry,
Nick. I was say they had Reggie Watts do a demo either just after or just before NAMM. I didn't catch the date on the video.
Yeah.
It was good. It seems everybody, Strymon included, for the Magneto, had a great set of content. As soon as you started hearing about it, within a day or so, I saw several videos, lots of official content. That seems to be the way to do it. Well, the way people are choosing to do things at the minute, to get a lot of content online just before the show. I wonder if we'll see that at Super Booth as well. Kind of a lot of announcements late April, and then it's just going to see it in person at the actual show.
Yeah, well, quite possibly. Yeah, I mean, I mean, we've booked. Are you going to be going to Super Booth, Ben?
Yeah. Hoping to stay a bit longer this time and check out a few more sites of Berlin, I guess. There's a new shop, Patch Points, which seems to be a shop for really vintage, rare synths, Surge Modular, some more modern Seat Lombard devices, bits of gear you don't seem to be able to get anywhere. So I don't know how you can run a shop around that at all. It kind of doesn't make sense. It's gear that you spend time trying to find. Yeah, you can't find them when you want them. So how can they have a shop around this stuff?
That's an interesting
I don't
concept.
know if it's just a back bedroom in Berlin and they open on Sundays and people hang out, or whether it's a shop open all week. I'll go see Coma at Common Ground as well. I think they've got the Absinthe bar from Super Booth in their workshop.
All right, danger.
Stay away
Hold
from the
that thought, because it's come to the time in the show when I should probably hear from our sponsors. Of course, iZotope Ozone 8, as we have had them providing competition prize for quite some time now. We want to say thank you to them. Really should check out Ozone. The ability to create the mastering setup using, it's got lots of kind of AI machine learning in it, so you can tell it kind of pretty much where you want to go. It'll listen to your material and then create a signal path and signal chain based on the program material. Also allows you to kind of then tweak that with the tonal balance control that gives you kind of rough target areas of frequency range, so that you can then adjust and try and hit those points, but with plenty of flexibility. So it's not like a cookie cutter thing. It gives you a lot more kind of flexibility. The ability to control separate instances of Neutron 2 and also Ozone within the same session, so you can effectively shape the entire master from within the single plugin. The ability to A/B lots of different mixes, So you can have a whole folder full of mixes you're trying to get the sound to, and just have a crossfade left and right between those, so you can hear what you're listening to and have a look at the frequency response and just tweak and change, and just lots of really very handy visual tools to help you get the most out of the mixing and the mastering, because it's, as we know, it's not always all about ears. Any kind of any tools that help you to visualize a mix and then kind of help you get where you're going to is very much appreciated, and iZotope really understand that with Ozone 8. So if you want to check out Ozone 8, it's well worth it. The whole suite of products really makes a lot of sense. So if you go to iZotope.com/ozone, as with all of their stuff, you can get I think it's 10-day limitless demo copy, so you can then check it out for yourself. There's lots of great material online to show you how to use it, because it's a very deep, very deep program. So once again, we thank them for their continued sponsorship of the show. Very much appreciated. And we've also got a competition. In fact, it's been a couple of weeks, hasn't it? So I think we asked, well, let's go to the competition. This week, we're looking for the hashtag MixFixer and the hashtag Ozone8 to tweet at Sonicstate and at iZotope Inc. So get on Twitter, tweet the hashtag MixFixer and the hashtag Ozone8 at Sonicstate and at iZotope Inc. and you will be entered for next week's prize. In fact, last week we've got, or the last one, we've got a winner who's called DJ Night Train, who tweeted, "Sounds great and easy to use. Make it sound good with Ozone 8. Thanks to Sonicstate and iZotope Inc." Obviously embellish that tweet a little bit more, which is what we encourage, because we know that iZotope do actually watch this game. They've got a kind of social wall in their cafeteria area, so all the stuff goes past them and they can see just how many times their stuff gets hashtagged and what have you. So yes, once again, if you would like to enter the competition, we're looking for the hashtag MixFixer and the hashtag Ozone8 at Sonicstate and at iZotope Inc. to enter and win the competition. Once again, we thank them for their continued sponsorship of the show. Right. So, Gaz, highlight for you. I mean, I know it's really difficult, but I mean, in terms of gears, I know you were really hot on the Empress Effects Zoia, which is really bonkers. That was a really impressive thing.
Yeah. I mean, that still is my pick of the show. That's in the essentially Empress, who are famous for making guitar pedals, have kind of upped the ante somewhat with this one. Made a guitar pedal that's essentially like a modular synth, really, in a pedal.
It's really clever. I mean, as far as I understand, I was looking a bit behind this, and what it effectively is a kind of hardware interface for pure data patches. So it runs some kind of DSP, it may be a Pi, it may be an Arduino type of thing, where you can but you can program it using these rows of buttons. So you would put various different things in each slot, and then route controls and what have you by sort of just dragging and dropping and pressing and holding. Really clever stuff.
So you push on a square that maybe has the output. Oh well, say for instance you create a new patch. It's completely blank. You press a square, you choose what algorithm or whatever it is that you want to load into there. Let's just say it could be an oscillator, or it could be an LFO, or it could be a delay. Say it's a delay, for instance, and you just wanted it to be just a delay pedal. So you've got like an input and an output, and you hold the square with, let's say, the input, and then hold the square where you want to route it to, and then on the output you hold the output and route it. So you could same with like you create an LFO and say you want that LFO to affect whatever parameter you want to affect. So you hold on the LFO and then you press the parameter that you want.
It's really clever
change.
actually, because for instance, in a delay, you just route the input to the output via some kind of attenuator, and the attenuator could then be controlled via MIDI input, or it's got a CV input as well, and you can build these really complex patches. And it's not just that page. It's got, is it up to 5 pages of? It's more than one page, basically. There's a bunch of pages. It's a really powerful,
pages
system.
And they said that they'd got 16 independent delays running on it. So the DSP is powerful enough for 16 different delays. But I think, in a way, partly because of their reputation for being maybe more as a guitar pedal manufacturer, this represents an interesting new area for them to go into, and the fact that there is oscillators and all the components of a synthesizer within it, and it's got one of those little tiny OLED screens. It looks like the same,
isn't it? Yeah,
but it looks like the same one that's on the monologue and the that OLED screen. I'm pretty sure it's the same one. But what's quite interesting with this one is it rather than showing an oscilloscope, it actually shows a waveform of what's going on, like a kind of running waveform.
There we go. So it's
get
quite tiny text.
visual...
I'm sure. Yeah, there we go. He plays it, doesn't he? Let me just see if I can find out. And it plays.
But it'll also show kind of what the LFO is doing, or see there, that's showing the waveform
of whatever you're working on too, so you can see.
It's very neat. I know, Ben. This this kind of came out of nowhere, really, and this sort of it's essentially a Eurorack module, but it's like one of the 1010 things, isn't it? Where you've just got the ability to program the DSP to do whatever you want, and this looks like it could be a pretty cool little thing. Apart from the tiny script in the AMOLED there, unfortunately, for people with poor eyesight like myself.
Rebel Technology made the Hoxton Owl pedal, which was pure data patches, but that was just 4 knobs. And you're in and out, so there was no screen, there wasn't all the buttons and much interface.
Yeah, you need an editor, don't you?
That's the thing about this, though. The interface is a new interface. I've not quite seen anything that does that before. So I think, kudos to them for coming up with quite an intuitive thing. Sorry to cut in there. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, I totally. That's a pretty cool. That's definitely a pretty cool product. I should also point out we got a couple of these in for review as well. Which, Gaz, I'm going to send one of these your way. This is the Ventris dual reverb.
They look great.
I specified that they send 2 because I'm going to use one for the Fun Friday jams because I need some sort of effect. This is a dual. They're supposed to be really, really good reverbs, and we didn't get a chance to see them at the show, but we found the box when we came back because it's absolute chaos at the studio here. So that'll be coming soon.
Hold the back up, Nick. Hold the back up of that. There's one thing about these source audio pedals. Sorry, not the back. The outputs on there. Can you see this very small little input? It's a little tiny little. Oh, I'm not sure where it is on that one.
Control.
There's a control in and a control out on there.
Control in.
And there's probably an out somewhere on there as well.
No, just an input on this one.
Oh, okay.
Is it like
a
MIDI or?
Yeah.
It's got MIDI in and MIDI out, and I think there's that can be a foot pedal or perhaps a control voltage. I'm not sure. Yeah,
well, what they do is they've got like a kind of they've got like a central controller. So if you use lots of other source audio pedals, you can run them all from this central controller, and then it's an alternative to like a MIDI setup really, but it's like their own ecosystem. So you can change patches from one place. It'll send the tempo to everything, much like you'd expect with MIDI, but it uses these like little mini jacks to connect. Also, you can connect. They've done their kind of like ring controller as well in the past. I don't know if that's something that they're still doing, but where you wave the ring around and it sends control information to the effect. So they're definitely an interesting. There was
the MIDI ring. That was another thing that we saw there. So Ben, sorry, I wanted to come back to you. Anything else that caught your eye?
Well, just really quickly still on the Empress pedal. There's this book that I reached back to grab, Designing Sound by Andy Farnell. It can be a little physics and maths heavy. There's equations and all sorts in there, but that's all based on pure data because the pure data software is free. And with that and a couple of online tutorials, in 10 minutes, you can make a triple saw wave oscillator and have it through a filter. It's very kind of user-friendly, at least as far as I've got. Very much beginner with it, but free software, pure data, if anyone wants to play around. In terms of other pieces of gear, the Deckard's Dream.
I did get a chance I had a play with that.
Before was at the show. The CS80 remake from Roman that was Sputnik Modular. And he also made Buchla clones. I'm not sure if he's still doing that. Cloned PCBs and panels and things. This Deckard's Dream. In terms of modular, the Verbos multi-delay, which had caught my eye just before NAMM, I think they put an Instagram picture up or something. It's apparently the delay that Don Buchla himself couldn't get to work. And Mark had said, I'm going to take it, and I think I can do it. And has. I think there's only one in original Buchla format, which is at EMS in Stockholm, the Swedish government-funded mega sim studio that you can write a paper and pitch why you should be allowed in there and go use for free. EMS. It's almost like a uni paper. I've had a few friends go, and there's, you know, Buchla room, surge rooms, loads of all modular rooms, all custom bespoke rooms, and it's free to anyone, not just Swedish people, but government sponsored. But yeah, Verbos multi-delay, it's lots of different delay taps on sliders with global reverb, global time control, some sort of pitch shifting going on. I'm not sure if it's all analog or if it's digital.
Is that a multi-gateway processor? Is that what it is?
Yes.
I think that might be it.
It's interplaying with. Never took it really with a.
To have it out, or is it ready to go?
This is ready to go, but we haven't gone into production. So
yeah, I don't know if there's any sounds demos of that, but I think Ed said that the Verbos thing was really cool as well. So yeah, seems to be a lot of stuff going on in the delay time domain on Eurorack stuff. It's interesting, isn't it? Like you say, it goes in kind of waves, doesn't it? There's
a module idea I had, and I've tried to get someone to make it. I wanted to release this last year. Not that I want to get into building modules. And it didn't happen. I was kind of let down. And several of those have now been announced at NAMM. I'm not going to say what they are. And I'm still trying to get someone to make it. Because for me, pure, I want a few of these things. And I was thinking if a company can do a small run, I'd love to see it. So it does move in ways. As soon as I saw one and thought that's nearly exactly what I want to see, I saw another two within about a week.
Right.
So it definitely does move in waves. It was nice to see an update on the 4MS Swan, as they're calling it, the spherical wavetable navigator.
Yeah.
6 voice, Waldorf-esque wavetables by the sounds of some of them. And yeah, some nice pushes of analog technology as well. IntelliGel updating their Rubicon oscillator, steady state Fate as well, pushing this kind of through zero FM technology. It's nice to see people pushing kind of older analog styles as well.
Did you see the Radikal Technologies? Delta Set A. I had to play with that because I thought it sounded really good. Actually, I was really. I mean, they won the best mono synth, which I was really delighted at because he's been a synth designer for such a long time, and I know the Spectralis and the Accelerator. You know, they did okay, but they didn't really reach the kind of heights that maybe something like this can. So I really hope it kind of it works for him because it's got multi-mode analog and digital filter. And I was playing with it, and the digital filter sounds really good. In fact, I think I preferred it to the sound of the analog filter just because it had this really gnarly quality. And they've got it's got 2 swarm oscillators, a bunch of effects and presets as well. It just looks really good. You said you were a bit excited by that, Gaz. Did you get to try it?
Your demonstrated it for me, and he's a little mischievous monkey. He was like loving taking it into the most kind of extreme areas and giving it a squeak, and it just sounded brilliant. And the LFO, oh god, it just sounds so cool the way it all interacts. And of course, I mean, I thought once I saw the Behringer Neutron, I thought, wow, they kind of, there's a few similarities between them. I'm sure they're very different as well. But that sort of semi-modular design, that is something that I'm very interested in myself. You know, like dreadbox, I suppose. The Erebus is a little bit like that. But I think what was really particularly nice about the Delta Sep A was just the way how it all comes together. And you've got a fairly decent amount of patch points on there, but just as a standalone unit. Well, I think you can either get it as a Eurorack, as a complete sort of, a little bit like the System 1M or something.
All right, so so it'll go in around.
Yeah, and then I think there's like a little bit, you pay a little bit extra to get it sort of have a desktop sort of casing around it as well. So yeah, I mean, it just you gotta hear it, haven't you? I mean, it really, you know, on paper it's interesting, but just to hear it,
it did sound really good. I know Ben, because
brilliant.
His filter and his oscillators sounded great, didn't they? In Solar, I remember this has got the same sort of technology as far as I understand it, but brought together in a single synth voice.
Yeah, Ken of Flux with it, or Flux 302, is in the chat room at the minute. So
hey, Ken, how are you? Yeah, we met. Oh, that's not him. We met. It's in that one, isn't it? Yeah, we met. I saw him every day. He was. I think, Gaz, you ended up staying at the house that they were sharing. He said it was great, but apart from the fact that he'd had no sleep, because every time he'd go to sleep, someone would come round for a jam, and so he ended up having about 3 hours sleep a night for the entire duration.
Yeah.
And he said it was great, but he was really tired. So I hope he's recovered.
Yeah, the house. I think it was like an Airbnb, and it had a really nice big kitchen with like one of those kind of islands in the middle, and they just piled loads of synths and things on there. So after they would come back and just end up. And Jim Hayward, he was staying there too. So
a big shout out to Jim Hayward and Mira, who are the local crew. They did a great job. Yeah, sorry, Ben, you were just going somewhere with that.
Yeah, so Ken, I did a little live stream on Sunday, and I had Ken on the show, and he was saying that really was his highlight of the whole show. Just the sound of that thing. So on paper, it potentially looks, as Gaz said, interesting, but maybe a little bit simpler, less patch points for those that are into that. Maybe less oscillators than other things in that kind of desktop size. But yeah, by all counts of all friends that were there, that was the thing to check out and listen to.
Yeah, it did. I had a brief play with it, but I don't. Do you know how much it costs? I don't know what the price of it is actually.
Is it $999?
Okay.
Without the case, and then $12.99 with.
Wow.
roughly.
Okay, so it's quite pricey.
It's a lot heavier price than Mother 32, and obviously everything's a lot more money than the Behringer offerings at the minute as well. So, but on all accounts, it sounded it. So. Yeah, I need to go watch every demo of that one, and hopefully have one at some point to check out, because his Swarm oscillator and the effects and the filter at Synfest last year were very good. They did sound very good.
Yeah.
The one thing, after chatting to Vernon Reed, and Vernon was really blown away by the Polyend Perk Pro, the kind of
the drum.
How would you describe it? The drum solenoid thing. Yeah. I went and checked it out. I filmed a little piece actually, because they've got an update to that now. Initially, when you bought that Perk Pro setup, you had to buy them in 3, and it was a controller. Now their new thing is that you can get them in as individual ones for around $399, I think, as opposed to $12.99, I think, for the 3. So it makes it a little bit more affordable that you can build up to it. But anyway, once I went over there, those guys at Polyend, my goodness, are they super bright, super interesting dudes. They were showing the latest update to the Polyend their sequencer, their big 32-step sequencer. You got eight separate tracks of 32 steps all running at the same time, and it's just a really beautifully made, wonderful to operate sequencer. I was so impressed by that, and they give me a little heads up about the forthcoming collaboration with Dreadbox, the Medusa, and I can't really say anything about it other than it's a lot more than what people currently think. So that's going to be, I think that's going to come out in Superbooth, or hopefully then, if things go to plan. All I would say about that, because I don't really want to spoil it, but is it really is a coming together of those two very interesting companies, the Polish Polyend and the Greek Dreadbox companies. So very exciting. That's so I think the thing about the Medusa, because we saw an image of the Medusa last year, I think people have kind of assumed that that's what it is, and all I would say is it's a lot more than that now. So it's something very interesting brewing there.
You see this as well, the Udo Newman. This kind of astonishing, it was a beautiful looking thing, really unusually shaped touchscreen with it's complete concept sort of type idea, just a big touchscreen with, I think it just had an i7 and a DX7 keyboard in it, and they cobbled together some interface from Juice, I think it was. That looked kind of interesting, although not sure what the point of it was, other than, pretty blinky lights with a big touchscreen on it, but that was an interesting aspect of it. I'm just trying to think if there's any other astonishing stuff. Did I mention the Casio stuff? I did, didn't I? The CT-X, which, a couple of people came up to me and said, have you seen that? The CT-X, I think it's 5,000 or 500 it's got this AIX engine, and it's got, you know, multi-sample, astonishing array of sounds in it. It's $174. I mean, that really was a bit of a mind-blowing price point. I think Casio are playing a long game here. They're starting to build up this kind of synth engine side of things and putting it in everything. And I suspect in a year or two, we're going to start seeing some interesting things from them, because they've got Rich Formidoni and also, what's the name of the other game? Mike Martin, who are both kind of fairly experienced product developers, and, you know, both work, you know, Rich Forbidoni worked with Korg for a long time. He launched the Kronos. You know, he's definitely, they're some smart guys, and I think they're obviously up to something, so that's something to watch. What else? Anything else that jumped out? I should probably have a list of questions, really, Ben, to kind of to throw in, but I'm only starting perking up now.
Yeah, the NAMM facts kicking in as we've got about an hour. But it's funny that the SEM oscillators, you know, the reissue of the SEM chips, obviously they're in the Behringer Neutron. They were also in the vintage SynthLab dual oscillator. Modular company, a couple of guys, you know,
the
small.
The 3340s. You mean the 3340s?
Yes. Yeah.
They sound.
I
have to say, they sound really good. I don't know. Have you heard? Have you been exposed to the Neutron outside of the teasers, or is that something you can or cannot say?
I was told I can, so I can do this very briefly. I can wave it around. I was told by Pete's, who you see in those inside R&D videos that Behringer are doing. I'm allowed to show it. I've got some videos with it I'm going to chuck up this week. They're only rough test patches, nothing too in-depth yet. But yeah, they sound great in this. The vintage SynthLab one from the demos I saw sound very good. I know Chris Meyer of Learning Modulars got those guys at Vintage SynthLab to do proper through zero FM, which is exponential FM. I'm just getting a bit tech heavy, I guess. But an exponential curve, will, by the nature of it, will never hit zero because it can't, whereas a linear curve can. But effectively, in musical terms, it means the FM can be a lot more musical. For anyone that's used a pair of analog oscillators frequency modulating each other, the depth gets so high and the pitch just starts to rise. And at that point, I usually throw a paddy and turn the system off and go away. And certainly, if you were jamming with people, it's like having an annoying guitarist that is turning the bassist's tuning peg just bit by bit through the song, just to wind each other up. It's the equivalent of, I'm sure we've all had that. It's the equivalent of that. You can be jamming on it and turning the depth of modulation up, thinking this sounds great, and then the pitch starts drifting up, which is fine in playing around at home, but you can't do that on a gig. And basically pushing this technology a little bit further than what other people seem to be doing is what caught my eye when I heard that for Vintage SynthLab.
Yeah, it seemed to do more. So, but so the Neutron. I mean, from what I heard on the videos, it sounds like the Neutron
doesn't do a through zero thing, but I don't know of any oscillators that don't cost more than this will for a single oscillator. So it's not really fair to compare it. If you've any questions on this so far, but I have been told I can talk about it. So
what's the filter
far
like?
Away? Chewy and raw and fairly dirty. It doesn't sound anything like the Model D ladder filter that's in their Model D or D clone. What's quite nice on the patch bay. Go on, sorry, Gaz.
Oh, sorry. Is it a bespoke filter? Is it its own filter?
Yeah, so I don't know quite what the design is, but you can patch straight into the filter, independently modulate it. You've got an ADSR that is pre-routed to it, separate from the amplifier VCA ADSR. The LFO is pre-routed as well, unless you patch in. You do get, it's not fully multi-mode in that you get every single output like you do on some SEM-based filters, but there are two outputs. There's the one that's selected, which can be a low pass, band pass, or high pass, and there's another filter out that is whichever one is next down on the list. So you always get two filter outs. Can be completely independent. You could use the filter for one thing, but then patch the oscillators into the rest of the synth. The delay is like that as well. So is the overdrive. They really can be completely independent units, which is nice if you've a lot of other gear to do that with. But yeah, the whole thing, the filter, the way the oscillators drive into it, obviously the overdrive is going to be as well, but very driven, chewy, quite raw character. You can hear a little bit of kind of whine and character on the delay, which for people that have used older BBD pedals and things, you'll be used to that.
So is it entirely analog then, or is it analog all the way through? Is it analog VCOs? Analog?
I think so. Yeah. So the both oscillators are the 3340 SEM Curtis reissues. Analog filter. I'm not sure about the LFO and envelopes. I mean, to me, I don't get too caught up.
I think the envelopes are analog, from what I've heard.
Are they? Okay. I mean, for me, a bit like that Verbos delay we mentioned, it's the interface can make something feel analog and tangible and fun and responsive, regardless of what it is anyway. So I'm not too precious for the envelopes. They do go very snappy. They go very tight if you want. They don't go super long for really long kind of drone stuff, but someone asked about the Model D, actually, if you could make that drone the equivalent of sticking a pencil under the keys. You can do that on this. There's a bias for the VCA, so you can just turn that up, and by default, everything will just drone without pressing keys, which is useful for figuring out what things are doing. Yeah, you've got independent sample and hold, which isn't just one of the waveforms on the LFO, which is nice, so you can have both. A couple of modular utilities. You can modulate delay time, so you can get like a BBD call.
I love that. Square wave modulated delay time. Big fan of it.
That's a Nick Pat standard. Is it completely normal then? Are all the controls normaled without patching?
Yeah, so default signal flow would be your oscillators with the blend between the two big tunings, to the filter, to the VCA, through the overdrive, then through the delay. The control path is one ADSR to the envelope, one to the VCA, and the LFO to the filter by default. And you can break all that with patching. If you wanted to take the oscillators out and patch something else into the filter, that would then follow through the default path. So you could forget this bit, plug your MIDI cable in, or USB on the back, and just kind of be ready to go, whether you've got any of this gear or not. Something like a Korg SQ1's good fun because they're cheap and small, and you can throw a couple of sequences into it really easily.
So when are your videos going? When are your videos going up then, Ben?
I shot them, I guess rather stupidly, really. It's just as easy for me to record a bit of video as it is audio. So I shot a kind of off-angle, blurry shot and originally sent them to the Midas team in Manchester and said, you can use these if you want. I've captured it. If not, just listen to the audio. Here's what I've been playing around with testing. So although we've seen this whole thing, they are kind of blurry teaser style videos, but I'm going to put those up back end of this week. And then in a couple of weeks, I'll get into really full kind of overview content of what each piece of the puzzle does. It'll take me a couple of weeks.
Cool. What's really encouraging is it's a thing. It's its own thing. It's not a clone. It's just it's something new, and that's what I think a lot of people would like to see. I mean, it's it's all well and good. People want a D for $300. That's fine, but it's nice to see that there's some innovation and something sort of unique and different to to just.
Well, we saw that with the Deep Mind, though, didn't we?
Yeah.
That ostensibly there's a kind of Juno heritage to it, but it's its own thing and it's got its own sound. And hopefully this, and coming from the same stable, really, those guys of Midas are brilliant, aren't they? So
yeah, they are really smart cool. People, very smart people. Oh, thanks, Ben.
It doesn't sound like. It doesn't sound like that. Definitely not.
And thank God it doesn't have. Well, at least from what you're saying, it doesn't have just yet another resonant ladder filter. Because I'm getting
but I guess the Marmite issue.
Sorry.
Go on, Gaz. Sorry.
I was going to say I was cutting in again. Sorry, but yeah, the Marmite issue is whether people like the color of it. I mean, I love it. I think it looks beautiful, but I've seen a number of people all being a little bit down on the color.
Yeah, but people are going to be down. There's always, you can't please everybody.
Yeah.
Polarizing. It's like the Model D's dirty little brother that comes in picking his nose and slamming the door as he comes in. The whole thing's just quite raw and character. It's definitely its own thing. And I think that's the most exciting part of it, that they've just made a synth voice that you can't say is this bit's from something else, this is from something else. It's an interesting unit on its own and really feature packed as well.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. Hopefully I'll be able to do a review as well myself fairly soon. Okay, well, it feels like we're probably sort of sliding towards the end of show. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Gaz, while we're before we go?
The Waldorf STVC was quite nice.
I thought it sounded great.
I'm a huge fan of the Strike Vet. I use my Strike Vet, like I use it on most of my productions in some way. I love it. And I've always thought it was slightly underrated, because when it came out, they were sort of pushing it as like a kind of porn soundtrack device, weren't they? With a kind of cheesy porn thing going on, which I thought sort of did a slight disservice to it, because I think it's a brilliant versatile instrument. So it's quite interesting that they've gone back and essentially done an upmarket Strike Vet. And operationally, other than the vocoder, is virtually identical to the Strike Vet. I noticed there's an extra knob for the effects controls, which are quite cool, because there's just a single knob for the Strike Vet, which is a sort of combined amount and rate sort of control, but that's now split into two controls. But other than that, it's almost identical to the Strike Vet. Oh, also, yeah, I noticed that the solo voice in the kind of clockwise position, Pluto. It's strange, isn't it, on the Strike Vet? It's going sort of bass, piano, electric piano, synth, Pluto.
I'm just trying to find it, because I shot the video with Nick Quaz on at the Waldorf, and I thought it did sound really good, actually. When he played it, oh, that's really nice. 250 bands on the vocoder, by the way, because wow, he got a lot of stick for that, but I don't think he actually heard me when I asked him, because he just said, yeah, it's really fat, and I think he just didn't hear what I said. To be fair, it's very noisy there, but it is actually a 250 band vocoder. Seems to be getting a bit of flack for the price though, $899. I mean, I don't know if that's
really nicely made though, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, it's a solid piece of kit. Yeah, it's not like the plastic Strike Vet. No, it's a chunky thing. So yeah, that may well be the deciding factor. But yeah, it looks sort of thing that might well work live. Anyway, right. Well, interesting stuff.
Just one quick thing, Nick. Sorry to butt in. Just as you're wrapping up potentially, did you check out the Volca mix, Gaz? Being a miniature tabletop fan,
I thought
maybe a less.
I kind of hate it.
I thought it's pants.
I hate it. I hate it. Right. I hate it on so many. Now I think there are some cool features in it, but ultimately I think it's all about inputs for me. I mean, the thing is about that what I wanted to see in something that format is inputs. I mean, there's currently six Volcas, and this thing has got three inputs. But the thing that is just super stupid, in my opinion, is the speakers that they've put in it. They'd been so much better off putting more input channels and no stupid speakers. I mean, those speakers are like. It baffled me, that did. I was really disappointed by that. I mean, there are some pretty cool features. I like the fact that they've put the analog filter controls on there. I think that's pretty cool, because they're the same ones that are on the Volca sample, but where it's two controls on the Volca sample, they've made that into single knobs. So you twist it to the left for a high cut, twist it to the right for a low cut. And a few pretty decent things on there, but ultimately it just feels like, ooh, I don't know. It
feels it's under featured. I mean, it should at least be able to I mean, what if they were smart about it? They should have put enough inputs on it so that if you bought it, you'd want to buy more Volcas to plug into it, rather than I actually now need another mixer to plug more Volcas in.
My biggest beef with it is it's not battery powered. It's not. You can't put batteries in it at all. I mean, the positive side of that is that it comes with all the cables and you can power 3 Volcas from the one thing, but I'm not quite sure that's what people wanted. I think it was like a little battery powered mixer. So I think the KV Gear Vixen, which is an independently produced mixer to the same format as the Volca. Yeah, I think that one does battery powered, but that one, you see, that one's kind of got all that. That's kind of what they should have done. So I think probably the guys over at KV Gear were probably heaving a massive sigh of relief, really, when the Volca mixer dropped. But
that one's a bit more expensive, but it does look like it's got more stuff going for it.
That's why I asked. You've confirmed everything I thought from looking at it. The Vixen, though, is 6 mono channels, 2 stereo channels. That will take 9 volt power in and 8 powers out. There's 1/4-inch send and return. But it's still the same size as a Volca. That just seems to be the one.
Yeah, but Ben hasn't got any speakers.
But you've got to plug it in.
Yeah.
So
how are you going to do the gig?
The jam, yeah.
Maybe there should be a Volca PA. And it could be maybe like sort of super tiny, but with sort of bass ports. So it sounds much bigger than it actually is, but ultimately completely useless. Yeah, that was a bit disappointing, to be honest. But hey, I mean, the Polylog seemed to, I don't know, it's not Polylog. I keep
Prologue.
Prologue. I don't want to use the word Prologue. It feels somehow like some sort of, some sort of medical condition that you get when you're of a certain age or you've had too many children. It just doesn't seem like the right word, but that sounded okay. I haven't really had it. Hasn't really kind of made me go ooh in the way that the Minilog did. The Minilog really kind of like, this has got something about it. It's got a charisma about it. Whereas it just feels like, I think I might have said this before. 4 Minilogs is about the same price as a Prologue.
That's the big Prologue, the 16.
But ultimately, it's not 4 times. You don't. It feels like it should have been cheaper to me because it's not. It's the economy of scale doesn't seem to apply to it. But there you go.
I like it.
Okay.
The Prologue.
Isn't there a compressor on the 16 voice version, but not?
Yeah,
there is.
Not on the 8 voice. Yeah, I thought that seemed a little bit mean, actually.
And there's no motion sequencer. No motion sequencer. Motion sequencer is one of the biggest plus points of the Minilog, and the monologue. I mean, it's great, and there's no motion sequencing, and that's dumb because all of that extra. That's 5 lanes or 4 or 5 lanes of extra modulation that you just don't have access to. Which just I don't really understand why they didn't do that. Anyway, what can I say? But you like it, Gaz, so that's all right.
Well, yeah, I thought I liked. I thought it felt like I don't know. I particularly like that low end compressor when you take it out and then put it back in, and you kind of go, ooh, that really does kind of bring this beautiful, this lovely thing, this lovely feeling in as you put it in there. That's why I felt it was a bit of a shame that they left that out of the 8 voice one. It seemed to be, I don't know, it just seemed a bit stingy to do that, However, I understand why they've done that, but yeah, no, I think I don't know. I think it's going to be quite a popular one. That though, I just feel that
I don't know.
It's good for live.
I think the difficulty is, without banging on about too much about it, it's a $2,000 synth, and a $2,000 synth, you're dealing with, you're into Dave Smith Rev 2, you're into that sort of territory, true. And it's not one of those. So
good point.
I don't really. That's why I think it just feels too expensive. Mm-hmm. Because the other stuff, the Minilog was the most affordable analog poly, and it's I've got one. I think it's great. It's a great little synth. I'd thoroughly recommend it to if people were looking for that sort of thing at that price. Great buy. I don't feel the same way about the Prologues somehow. It just sort of feels like it's not enough of an advance on from that. It's just got more voices. I mean, I guess the digital oscillator is, quite a big deal to a bunch of people, but I don't know.
It sparked a lot of memes in all the various synth meme groups for just having one LFO. I've just seen Ken mention.
I know. I feel really guilty because I actually think I'm on record as saying, but it's only got one LFO. But I mean, so what? So a lot.
I wonder though. I wonder if we will see a price drop on that though, because we've seen it with a few of the Japanese releases, haven't we? The Roland specifically, when they launched the JD-XA, that seemed like quite expensive when it first came out, and the System 8 as well. Just seemed like they've kind of just pitched a bit too high on the price point. But maybe the market forces will sort of conspire to bring it down a little bit, and it'll, I mean, I'm imagining that the Prologue 16 would be much better off around the sort of 14 to 15 sort of mark. Like, the System 8 kind of come out at around the 14, 15 mark, didn't it? But now you can get it around the 12, So I'm just wondering whether market forces will conspire to find its natural place.
Maybe so. Right, that feels like a good time to wrap. Before we go, I should also just draw your attention back to the competition. Don't forget, if you want to enter to win a copy of iZotope's Ozone 8, we're looking for the hashtag MixFixer and the hashtag Ozone 8 to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. That's MixFixer and Ozone 8 to @Sonicstate and at iZotope Inc. God, I'm messing up my words today. Anyway, that's it for this time. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm feeling better already. I think it's just it's either the cold drugs I've got, or maybe I am feeling a little bit better and I'm going to be on the mend, which would be great because I've been barely able to do anything this week, just apart from every time I type a sentence and most of it's wrong. It's like that kind of woolly-headedness, and I have to go back and correct it. So it's just I can't really do anything. Certainly no coding, nothing like that. But Ben, thank you very much for joining us. What we should plug the. I do apologise for not getting around to doing the freeze machines video before NAMM, but as you know, things transpired against us. But you should check out, shouldn't Ben? They should buy freeze machines. Yeah. It's a great item. So you just got to. Freeze machines is the they're able to rack. Devices that Ben built in conjunction. I guess it was a partnership, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really nice to work with you on that, and I need to do some modular synth video stuff as well, maybe a guitar, just showing it off. I think the internal synths work great as well, but I really like just having the effects device just to run, well, for me, this stuff modular, but to run sounds in. I think it's really fun to play, and if you've got a pedal to assign to the reverb freeze as well, it becomes really nicely interactive. People should go buy it.
I'm just going to plug that here. So yeah, if you go to sonicstate.com/shop, there's a link on our nav bar. So just go freeze machines and you can get it there, and it's available now, $9.99. And it is actually, it's a very creative tool actually. I wish I had more time to play with it, because every time I switch it on, I end up kind of coming up with all these sort of mad textures and sort of these beautiful reverbs. Essentially, it's a set of plugins that allow you to create kind of various frozen reverb textures, and they're just really lovely, massive and wide and spatial. And you can either run them from the individual instruments or from a live input.
Nick, can I ask you just to quickly grab that photo I've sent you to your email, because I think everyone needs to see it. It's people. It's the funniest thing.
Let me see.
Thinking of reverbs, either for people in the chat.
Wow, that's weird. That is really weird. Ooh, I'm not sure about that. That's creeping me out a bit. Sorry, Ben, you were just about to drop a pearl of wisdom.
Well, not so much. Just if it took a while to find the picture, just to ask if anyone had used the new reverb in Logic 10's update.
No, I haven't checked out Logic 10. What is it?
Briefly played, but it looks good.
Yeah.
I just was curious, either people in the chat or either of you.
That Logic update is unbelievable. I can't, honestly, gosh, what a bumper crop of brilliant stuff in that new Logic update there, and it's just ace to see the return of camel fat in such a cool plugin. And like when Apple bought when Apple bought Camel Audio, and then they brought back Alchemy. I thought that was going to be it, but it's great because it also Camel Space has returned as well in these new
Chromoverb.
Oh yeah,
okay, that's the one. Right, I must check that. And because that came out in NAMM as well. It was a little bit overload, wasn't it? Didn't get a chance to see that.
Yeah, and there's that thing as well that Logic now does. Cubase has done it, and I've been banging on about it for a long time, and Melodyne too. Auto tempo detect, so you can just play without a click track, and it'll retrospectively put a tempo map on your performance.
Oh, in fact, that's right, because I was talking to the guys at Melodyne, and Logic Pro, the latest version of Logic now has the API hooks for Melodyne in it. So if you've got a Melodyne plugin, it integrates at a kind of secret, a DAW level. So it will analyze the stuff, and it will work with the waveform displays. I didn't get the chance to do because when I showed up to talk to them, they said, "Oh, I've just got to dash off." So that's one thing I didn't get a chance to go and talk to them about. But apparently, the integration with Melodyne via the Melodyne API is now part of Logic Update. So if you do have that, you get a much deeper integration, and certainly for editing on the fly without having to use the editor, it gives you a much better integration. So that's worth checking out for sure.
Great.
Anyway, I think that was it, wasn't it? We sort of. We were going, and then we were back, and then we're going. Anyway, thanks everybody. That was great. Ben, thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget, check out Ben's stuff, Divkid video on YouTube and on Patreon and all of those kind of good things. Thank you very much for joining us. And also Mr. Gaz Williams, who's also sounding better, not quite so pneumonia. I think was the one I enjoyed more than Namthrax this year.
Pneumonia, yeah. I'm trying to decide whether to go back to bed or not. I've been so bed bound in this but yeah, actually, doing the show has actually picked me up quite a bit.
Perked
so yes, thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah. So thanks for.
There we go. It's official, folks. Sonic Talk cures all ills as well.
Makes
you feel
cures
better.
your ills.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I wanted to thank. But before we get off, I wanted a big shout out to Ed, Rob, Andy, Jim, and Mira, and all the crew, and also oh gosh, completely gone now. All the people that helped us out at NAMM, and the sponsors, all of that stuff, and everybody who was involved. So thank you very much, and all of you guys for watching the videos, because obviously if we made them and nobody watched them, it'd be a bit of a waste of time. Next up is Music Messer, and then Super Boost. So onwards and upwards. Anyway, that's it for this time. We'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.